Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This show is called Good Morning, Comrade. You can listen to us every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock. We also have Thursday releases. You can get more information at goodmorningcomrade.com. You can also check out our page on WHIV, WHIVFM.org/good-morning-comrade. Good morning, comrades. How are y'all today?
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Robert and Aaron.
Hello.
How are y'all today? Hey.
Yeah, I feel like it's been so long since we've sat down and done this.
Yeah, it's been a bit. The holiday season did get a bit wild, didn't it? Y'all, it's the first show of the new year. Happy New Year, comrades.
Happy New Year. Happy New Decade.
Happy New Decade. Yeah, we did have that episode where we sort of sat in the parish hall and did a clip show.
Maybe I overestimated how much of a thing it was.
What?
I think everyone just agreed it's a decade, but in my head, people thought it maybe wasn't. I don't know.
Who really cares?
There's that weird thing where it's like, the decade doesn't start until
there's no year zero.
Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Stop being semantic. Stop being stupid.
Pedantic, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. Now I'm being pedantic. Anyway, so it is the first show of the year. So what do y'all think? What did y'all sort of ideas for? What do y'all see in this new year, I guess? What is something
I don't know.
that you...
I got the New Year blues.
Oh, no. You get the sad at the new year?
I want to be really positive and upbeat, but I'm like, oh, God.
So thing number one is get over the sads.
Let's move past my own personal funk. And then also whatever I'm gesturing wildly, all of this.
All the other stuff that's going on.
All of the
War with
things.
Iran and all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Great. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, so me, I don't know. It's just one of those years where I'm just kind of taking it as I go. The campaigning for Bernie and all this other stuff is kind of a number one on the radar for me. And then who knows what else can come from that. I mean, better myself, not drink for January, all these other things. That doesn't do anything for me.
Not doing
I've already
it.
broken that.
If for those of you who don't live in New Orleans, but that's pretty common to do after Mardi Gras. So
for Lent.
A lot of people give up drinking for Lent. But it's a fool's errand to give up drinking for January.
Yeah. No, I'm going to hell anyway, so I'm not going to pretend to even be Catholic anymore.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember the literal exact moment I decided I wasn't Catholic anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I was in, because we were really Catholic growing up. My parents were both Eucharistic ministers. I used to, I volunteered a lot. I went to Catholic school. I was chosen as the representative from my church specifically to go and present a rose to the Cardinal Archbishop, and in Philadelphia for one of his things. So that's how Catholic we were. And then we kind of slowly backed off because I grew up in Boston before I moved to Pennsylvania, and apparently the diocese, which is, for those of you who aren't Catholic, it's basically the groupings of churches. So essentially your counties, your parishes, but as far as religiously.
That's where the bishops hang out.
Yeah, because it's all centralized.
Yeah.
Catholicism.
The Catholic Church is organized and hierarchical.
Yeah. So apparently the diocese over from ours, so we used to go to that church like pretty frequently if we couldn't go to our church, was one of the worst for like the child molestation.
Oh no.
So, and we got a letter from that diocese asking for money, and it was like ostensibly going to be used for victim payoffs. And my dad wrote
and relocations.
Very angry letter back, and we like morphed into those people who only went to church on like Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one Christmas Eve, and I heard a woman talking about how a sermon she'd recently gone to was so powerful because the priest was talking about how he'd seen a dog give birth, and it was just like this beautiful magic of life, and he just didn't understand how any woman could ever have an abortion because of that beautiful magic of life. And I said, oh, okay, so I'm not Catholic anymore. Cool. I'm not even like a lapsed Catholic now. I'm just like straight up not doing this right now.
That reminds me of the epiphany I had but mine was like when I was a tiny child.
Interesting choice of words, epiphany.
Like my mom listens to this. It's terrible. So I used to want to be I've told you, Aaron, before, I used to want to be a paleontologist. Like when I was a little kid, I was like dinosaurs. And I like shadowed a paleontologist, like that's how they did and the whole bit. And so this guy was like, I went to church all the time. My mom always took me to church, bless her heart. And then there was this like youth
Bless her
pastory
heart.
guy who was just like, yeah, the earth is only 2,000 years old and you should listen to like scientists because
Jesus rode dinosaurs, baby.
And I was just like, well, but dinosaurs though. And this is how like a polite like kid I was, because I was like an only child and you're just used to being like, I was able to pick up on social cues really easy. And he goes, no, dinosaurs aren't real, those are just big horses. And I just was like, thank you very much, I'll just be here quiet for the rest of the time, wait on these cookies. And then like the next week I was like, Mom, I don't really want to go to church no more.
Do y'all remember?
She was like, no, this is dumb, I can't really do this.
Do y'all remember when Bill Nye debated Ken Ham? Who's this? He's the guy who like owns the creation
The
of the
Ark.
museum.
Yeah, I used to drive by that thing when I would go.
What? Where's
when
that?
I go to, it's in not Lawrenceburg, Indiana, but it's like it's in northern Kentucky, and I would drive by that thing before I went to the boat, which the boat is the casino.
Maybe we should do a road trip there.
Indianapolis. No, it's not that interesting.
Okay.
Like it's already been done too. Like so
okay.
many people have like. That's the only people who go there are the people who go there ironically. Like nobody like there's school field trips or whatever probably, but nobody. It's like that Patton Oswalt bit where he talks about like the spam museum.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna be the only person who like unironically goes to the spam museum and they'll carry me around. Yeah, everybody just goes to that thing like ironically just to drag it.
I was actually on topic. I was actually in a Catholic church last week because I had an aunt or a grandma. It was actually a great aunt. She was 9. No, she turned 100. Just turned 100 and then died like before Christmas. And I sat through the entire Catholic mass. I didn't know if I could do it. Actually, kind of a breezy time. I gotta say, like one thing about Catholics, and I grew up like quasi Catholic, I suppose. They can get through an agenda quickly.
Oh,
they
no, I know
how to do this. They've been doing it for thousands of years.
God, the first time I went to like a Baptist church, I was like, no,
This is taking forever.
This? I was like,
Oh
where
my
are
God.
the cues that it is time to leave?
One time, I went to a funeral for somebody on Kimberly's side of the family, and they're like Seventh-day Adventists. And we were in there for like 2 hours, just like reading different parts of the Old Testament.
I honestly really miss church sometimes. Like I don't miss the theology, but I really miss the community aspect of it.
That was there.
And and it's like it's like so reassuring to like know what you're supposed to say and like just know the ritual of it. Like I think I'm gonna have to start going again. Like, and when I was in DC, I started going to the Unitarian Universalists.
Yeah,
and it had like everything I liked about church.
Are they like?
Nothing I didn't like.
But are they snappy like the Catholics?
Depends on your church. So this specific church, it was actually super cool. It was in DC. I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of the first like integrated churches in DC, and they were really involved in like fair housing. So they had like people on all of the like the housing councils, and they would march for immigration, and they just had a lot of like it basically if you have to talk
social justice
like
story in a church.
Yeah, it's just essentially just like social justice. But it apparently it depends on like what church you go to. Some like skew more heavily Christian because it's like a technically non-denominational. But I was like thinking about this when you were talking about going to that museum. So I forgot when I was in Argentina. So I studied abroad in Buenos Aires when I was in undergrad, and my friend and I just like really hung out. We were like hot messes that entire time we were there. But we found ourselves.
Let's talk about that.
Oh God, yeah. Not some like I'm like really really surprised we didn't get like Natalie Holloway. Like to be honest, mean? She's the woman who got like abducted and more than likely murdered by someone. Probably that one guy who I can't remember his name. Anyway, essentially we were not safe. I do not know how we survived it is like the point I'm making. But we did end up at this theme park. It's called Tierra Santa, which is like Saints Land, essentially.
Cool.
And it was like a Bible-themed theme park. But it had like all animatronics. So like you could go to like an animatronic Last Supper. And they had like animatronic like blessings, and then every hour,
oh my
like
God,
on
it's
the
like
quarter
the Hall
hour,
of Presidents.
it was literally so every hour on the quarter of the hour there was this giant mountain in the middle of the theme park, like obviously man-made, and Jesus would like literally like rise out of the mountain.
Whoa!
Like literally every hour. It was,
oh my God, this is
I
awesome!
was like hungover to the point where I was like potentially still drunk.
Yeah.
Because like in those days it kind of all blended together.
Yeah. When did
still
you ever stop
wearing my
drinking?
clothes like from the night before. And I was like, well, this was a choice that we made to do this. Cool. Great. And
Here we are, unwashed and watching Jesus rise over that mountain there.
I don't know. Part of me thinks like Jesus would have been like a chill dude, and probably would not have loved that park. He
didn't like bankers either. He was more
like
of a give away all of your possessions,
right?
Give away all your worldly possessions. That
you know
kind
that
of thing.
exists in the U.S. though, right? It's called the Holy Land Experience in Orlando. Yeah,
what?
You can see like the 7 stations of the cross like every day. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So
dark.
It's
That's
so
like the
weird,
worst
dude.
part of Jesus.
It's
you
so
know?
weird. Like that park is weird, and I also feel like we're getting close to touching on the deep dive that I know you want to do into Jim Baker's Heritage USA, because I love scams and I love amusement parks.
Oh my God, it's a twofer.
Really
it's
obsessed with Jim Baker lately. I don't know why.
Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, I've just been listening to a lot of things about him and like learning his history, and it's fascinating.
Oh my gosh, stay tuned, folks. This has to happen. Y'all have to do it.
Yeah, so call in and tell us.
Yeah,
I am thinking about doing a political series. Get it? Tea, like spilling the tea. Specifically about copyrighted TM. Don't steal it. Specifically about different political figures, but like nothing about the actual politics, just about how messy they are as human beings. Like see Hunter Biden, see Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
See George W. Bush, like circa DUI stage.
Yes. This is the best.
His daughter. I don't know. We'll see about that.
Yes, get them. Get their ass.
Okay. They were... I mean, as a messy 20-year-old, I don't know that someone would want it. Like, I would want someone going back to dissect my life.
The difference between you as a messy 20-year-old and them as a messy 20-year-old is they're heirs to the Bush
They didn't ask to be born, okay?
Yeah, but they still benefit from it.
No, there's actually a tangible discussion about this. Like the thing is like
fair game.
The things that I did as a messy 20-year-old, like I did some sketchy stuff, but I was also in the Marine Corps, and if I would have ever got caught, there would have been no protection for me.
Yeah,
I would have been out there. Just like
anything that they did, they get away with.
Just like Hunter Biden, it's the same way. It's not that Hunter Biden was allegedly in a strip club smoking crack. Allegedly, it's that when he allegedly did that, there was like no repercussions for that.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
Yeah.
So I will keep them on the list, but they will be far down the list because part of me thinks that a lot of the stuff that I remember being really scandalous was just straight up slut shaming, because it was like the early 2000s and it was not a great time to be a slutty lady back then.
When has it ever been?
So no, I was actually thinking, because we've like really gone in hard on Gen X. And I specifically have gone really hard on Gen X, but I was listening to a bunch of specifically what is that song I was listening to? I can't remember what it's called. With what's her face? Courtney Love.
Courtney Hole.
Oh, Celebrity Skin. So, and I was listening to the lyrics, and I was like, honestly, like I was like super uncool in high school, and for like
same.
So by the time I was like got to that point in my life where I was like drinking and doing slutty things, like it was already okay to do those things. Like it didn't have like as much of a narrative around it. Whereas I'm like looking back and I'm like, yeah, it really was like not okay to be sexually active as a woman, like at a certain point. And even just because I've been super obsessed with Monica Lewinsky lately and just like what a bum deal she got. And so you know what, Gen X feminism, I'm sorry. I'm like a little too hard on you.
Would you say that they are, well, let me save it. Would you say that they're canceled?
I would say they are not canceled.
Gen X feminism isn't?
No. Gen X, it could grow. It could stand for some personal growth. It could do better, but couldn't we all do better?
Yeah.
I'm not here to cancel anybody.
You are listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This show is called Good Morning Comrade. A moment ago, Robert mentioned our call-in line, or you mentioned our call-in line. Right now, our tentative call-in line is 504-459-9945. That's my personal Google Voice number. I'll leave a message, and you can hear your lovely voice, the dulcet tones of you, listener.
Any heavy breathing gets immediately blocked. I know how y'all work. Okay,
yeah,
I've worked on many hotlines. There are some gross people out there.
I am the only person that's allowed to heavy breathe on this show. Okay.
Yeah. So
anyway, speaking of canceled,
cancellation culture. My gosh, we've talked about it before, but it's back in the news again. People are getting canceled left and right on Twitter. I got canceled because I had a little bit too much to drink. I got canceled by 10 people. So that's probably not actually good.
You're canceled 10 times?
I got called a trashy bot, and I was like, thanks for thinking I'm trashy.
So can we go through what happened here?
So we are dancing around Contrapoints, and Contrapoints video specifically on cancellation. It's an hour and 40 minutes. It is like honestly worth every single moment. Definitely watch it. I watched it this morning. We've been talking a lot. I haven't been on the show in a little while, and it's because I've been like just really struggling with things, like struggling with my own personal like darkness, and then also, I have this like feeling where I'm like worried about the left because I view the left and I view like progressivism and like all of these like really good social justice like values as what's going to save us. So like that is like my bright shining star in like the dark night, right? And so when I see like people who I like and admire and like have similar values to me kind of like tearing each other apart on like social media, so whether it's Twitter or it's like on YouTube, you know, whatever it is, I just get so depressed because I'm like, well, cool. Like we're just never going to be able to do this. And we're all just going to end up like eating each other. And, you know, that's not to say I don't agree with criticism. Right. And I think that's what Contrapoints.
So let's set this up. Let's set this up. So who is Contrapoints and what did she do and what happened to her?
Okay, so Contrapoints is I personally find to be a really wonderful YouTuber. She is a trans woman, and she has really, I think, with a lot of humor and grace and like just open honesty, documented her transition. So there's like that aspect that I really enjoy of her videos. But then she also just breaks down a lot of social justice theories.
She's famous initially for like combating like the right wing and the MRA type people and how to identify Nazis and that sort of thing. And she's moved her focus a bit towards a little bit more of structural things and things based around her own personal experience with gender. Yeah,
and I think I very rarely watch one of her videos and think she's got a take wrong. And even sometimes,
or even that she's coming from a bad place.
Yeah. It's just I've always learned something when I've watched her videos. The production value is like out of control, amazing. She just really has, it's like a sense of humor and a sense of grace that I really just admire. But like a lot of the stuff of what she talks about is like pretty controversial, and it's nuanced in a way that does not play well on some of our social media sites. So, you know, specifically
like
Twitter,
which one?
Specifically Twitter, like gender and like non-binary genders, and you know, people's views on gender are nuanced and sometimes very difficult and sometimes clashing, and they're conversations that we really need to be having, but the 240 character kind of way that we have those conversations on Twitter is I feel like people often come off glib.
Going from 120 to 240 didn't solve everything?
It didn't. Surprise, Jack.
Anyway, so okay.
So essentially just to like boil down the video, she got quote unquote canceled because she worked with a trans male porn star named Buck Angel.
Yes.
Who to be honest, I don't really know anything about, so I can't even talk about like whether people's arguments have merit, but he is considered to be a
trans medicalist.
Which is essentially that somebody who is you can only be trans is if you have or are planning to go through gender reassignment or gender excuse me, that's not how we say it anymore. It's gender confirmation surgery or gender affirming surgery. Whereas like we now understand that is not, you know, gender is a binary and a person can choose to have gender affirmation surgery. But somebody who chooses not to, it doesn't make them any less trans. Please don't cancel me. I think I have this right.
But let's just say that none of us in this room are trans or non-binary or any of those sorts of things. But at the same time, we're speaking of these in as good faith a way as we can.
Yes, and I do really try to. I work with a lot of trans people, and correct. I do try to keep up with terminology. It's sometimes difficult because things change, and when you're not in the community, I think it sometimes can be. I sometimes don't even know where to look. Like right. I've been asking my work for, you know, more trainings on that because I don't want to think I have a good understanding of something or I'm using a term that I think is the correct and proper term and then find out it isn't. And I honestly don't really, like, aside from Twitter, which is, I think one of the main reasons I still am on the website is because I think it's a handy way to, like, go and learn things without having to be like, hey, what should I call you? Like,
yeah. Well, yeah. And one of the, and another one of the better things that I found about Twitter over the years is that it's actually a good place to sort of meet people and talk to people that come from, different background and experiences. Anyway, so she got in trouble for that and for some other stuff as well.
On the, and then I guess she had some pretty glib tweets that people thought were
NB-phobic,
non-binary phobic, and just like minimizing, I think, the NB experience. I thought was kind of what the consensus was, which I think, definitely merits a conversation and, maybe even some criticism. But
what happened? So how did that conversation go?
It was just it was like it was just straight up pile-on. And I understand, it's like everybody thinks, okay, well, I only have 10 followers. So, like, okay, who cares what I have to say? But when it's like one tweet on top of, another 1,000 tweets, I mean, I was like really overwhelmed with my 10 tweets, even though I knew I was right and they were wrong about how awful Tulsi Gabbard is. But, like, gotta work that way. And somehow I felt really awkward about that. I can't imagine 1,000 people telling me about how terrible or how my takes on Tulsi Gabbard are wrong, even though they're correct.
You don't think her hanging 10 is cool, man?
Oh my God. I hate it so much. Anyway. So it was just, so that's like essentially that is like the issue at hand. And Natalie, who again is on YouTube under Contrapoints, had just basically recorded a video about like her experience, but also, other times in which people have been canceled, and kind of that pile on that occurs, and, whether it's merited. And I think that it boiled down to, it's what do we want from a cancellation? Like, are we going in good intentioned and just wanting people to understand that words have meaning and that you can hurt people with your words? Or are we wanting to just like straight up, you are no longer welcome in our community?
You want blood.
Because it seems like there's no room for growth. Like, there's no room to admit a mistake. There's no room to say, okay, well, like, we just have differing viewpoints and maybe neither is necessarily incorrect. They're just different. Like, where does this leave us? That's been something that's like, I'm asking this question. That's been,
I don't have an answer
to that. It's weird because to me, it's nuanced, but it's not at the same time. To give you like the example on the other end, I saw some garbage today, like he had TVs on at work, and it was like Harvey Weinstein like showing up in like pathetic with his little walker going to court. I'm like, I want to kick that thing out from under him. And the Chiron on the bottom was he hopes to produce movies again one day. And I'm like, first of all, produce. You were just a money man. You weren't doing anything. You weren't doing anything artistic. But secondary, like somebody like that, like a Harvey Weinstein, which all the things he allegedly did, he cannot sit with us in society. So that thing happened a couple months ago. He was at some comedy show and like multiple comedians were like, "Are you kidding us with this? Like, I'm not doing this show. This is what I'm talking about right now. I'm going to talk about this man right here sitting like how y'all know he's in here with us. This guy right here who did what he did." And that, when we say like, who should we cancel? Like, yes, those people need to be canceled. They cannot sit with us in society. They can like, and R. Kelly cannot be with, I can't show up at the bar and be like, oh, I'm at the bar with R. Kelly. Like, isn't this normal? And no, get away from it. Like, you have to go somewhere. I'm trying to think of another example. Like when that lady a couple years ago, Florida Governor Rick Scott, who totally trashed the state of Florida, and this woman, this pleb, how dare she? She was at Starbucks. She's like, how's he going to be in here getting a cup of coffee with me before I go to work? Oh no, I'm yelling at this guy, and she yelled at him all the way out of the. Oh yeah,
that dude
Starbucks.
That dude stole from Medicare.
Cancel. But
also, he looks like a mantis.
Yeah, he looks awful. He looks like a ghoul. But
or like Nosferatu.
Now the other side of that is like what Aaron said. I remember one of the tweets when like the trans Twitter, and I do not have a dog in this fight. I have no when we were talking about trans medicalists earlier, I just threw my hands up because I'm just like, I'm not even getting involved in that. That's something that like the trans community has to work out. But a good tweet I saw was, "Oh, good job, trans Twitter. Now that you've canceled Contrapoints, maybe we can talk about canceling the people who are actually like trying to kill us or like trying to take our human rights away. Great job going after her." And I was like, yeah, exactly. What are we talking about? Even if you disagree with her, like you can have that disagreement in like a nuanced way without being like, oh, you can't sit with us, because obviously that person can sit with us. Like, oh, well, I can't make that judgment. But I say, like, as a leftist, as like politically and socially, she can definitely sit with me. But that's something the trans community has to work out on.
We can certainly see the impact that it has as well, because it sort of makes, I mean, it definitely makes people apprehensive about what they do and don't say. And we can say at one side of it that it maybe makes people more careful, but it also like can prevent people from saying things that they, that could be in addition to a discourse or whatever, and they might be afraid to say it because it could be controversial, right? Like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable now even thinking about, like, well, what if GMC gets canceled,
Oh my gosh.
For even bringing this up, and it's sort of like, fine, I don't care. Cancel me.
Well, so she mentioned a book specifically that I am definitely going to read, because this is very much, I think I struggle with, is Conflict is Not Abuse. And it's Overstating Harm, Community Responsibility, and the Duty of Repair. And that is such an interesting concept to me. And it's this idea that, sometimes truths are difficult and sometimes people's truths are different. And it's not necessarily a slight or an attack or even something that you can do about it. And I was just thinking, like, how unhappy I was before. So before I started social work school, I was, I had an admin job. I was not really doing much for the cause or whatever. And I was pretty, I was feeling bad about that. And I used to I just spent all my days like reading about like injustice and reading about like, so I used to read like Jezebel all the time. And it was like just reading about all the ways in which like women have been slighted, and which I as a personally as a woman have been slighted, and like just encouraged to reframe so many of my interactions with this lens of like, I don't want to say victimhood, but this lens of, oppression, which I think was really helpful to me in one way. Because it really did open my eyes to a lot, but it was also making me absolutely miserable. And I'm like, not telling you to
isolating. It's very isolating in terms of the ways that you're like getting screwed over and over again. And that's like, the only way like the world, right?
Not advocating like taking the black pill or whatever, but at some point, like the world is genuinely really awful a lot of the times, and you just have to prioritize like what you're gonna give a blank about, and not because like it's fair or it's okay or that all of those other things like don't deserve your attention. It's just that you as an individual like you do not have the capacity to focus on, care about, or be involved in all of the things that are wrong in this world.
Right.
And so you really need to like figure out like, what does that mean to you? Like, do you care most about women's issues? Is like, that's where you're going to put your time. Do you care more about like unionizing? Is that where you're going to put most of your time? Like, do you care most about, whatever it is, the environment? I mean, we all probably should care a little bit more about the environment, but
we all have a stake in all these things. But I think that there's a certain thing that you touched on that maybe, maybe we don't agree with us, and maybe we do. But there's almost sort of this assumption, and this always comes down to like the privilege discourse and these sorts of things, that like if someone has a certain, and I'm saying this is a white dude, cishet dude, but like if somebody comes from a background of more experience or more privilege or whatever than you, from any of these perspectives, much less all of them, that means that they necessarily are not miserable or something, or not facing some kind of obstruction in some kind of way. And I'm sort of like, well, actually everybody's miserable because they're all working all the time and all the other things. Now all the bad stuff on top of that is extra or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like I'm not the governor over here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this idea that, I don't know, when we're talking about privilege, it's this idea that if the like playing field was level, that we would all. It's that what is it? The equality of outcome.
Yeah.
And that's like that is like impossible.
Yeah.
Like it's just impossible to reach.
It reminds me of that time, and I bring this up a lot. We talked about this on the Ben Burgess interview as well. That the idea of that, like, we remember when Hillary Clinton said, like, breaking up the big banks wouldn't solve racism.
Yeah.
And like it's sort of like, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't solve racism, but it would definitely be a redistribution of actual material wealth to working people. Would it be evenly distributed? Probably not. But it would be something that would be a net good to working people if the money from the banks was redistributed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like there's these sort of like ideas that like that sort of like carve up the working and I say, when I say working class, I mean like people who are not millionaires and billionaires, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when most people are saying that, it's good to take them at that sense until we have better language to use it. But essentially, like, there is a certain component of, I ain't a millionaire, you ain't a millionaire, none of us are rich, or whatever. And these lines that are carved up between these different identities and these sorts of things. And again, white cis het dude here, right? Or whatever. But like, when we're fighting one another, the ruling class just runs roughshod over us.
So it's not even because I don't want to like identity is really important, and
I'm not saying it's not.
No, I don't. So my thought is it's less about like, because I don't even think it's like, oh, we're arguing over like what's more important right now. Is it more important to work on racism? Is it more important to work on class? Like, I don't even think that's the narrative right now. What I think is happening is that
it's more marginal than that. It's more marginal.
It's not even. It's like you're expected to be perfect in every single one of those aspects. Yeah. So you're expected to have the perfect language and ideas about class. You're supposed to have the perfect language and ideas about gender. You're supposed to have the perfect language and ideas about race. And I think it's getting to the point where people are feeling paralyzed
and
because
isolated.
It's like the idea that if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. And so it makes me so upset because I'm like, well, at a certain point, like we have to do stuff because like people's lives are on the line and, this is like really important. This is not like a theoretical game. Like, yes, obviously you're never going to, we live in a really terrible society. And so whatever choice you make is going to be the bad choice. But at a certain point, you need to make it because there's like real people on the line. Like, that's why I just worry. It's like, I've been seeing a lot of leftist Twitter. It's like, okay, like, oh, Bernie Sanders isn't left enough, which like, fine. But then there's this idea that like, oh, I would never vote for someone who did this, or this. Or we need to cancel someone who has like had a net good on whatever movement we're working towards because they, don't have the perfect views on something else. Or not even that. It's like that we disagree with their views.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just have been really feeling really awful about it, to be honest. I've been feeling really like very pessimistic, very hopeless.
Mm-hmm. On that point, you were listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade.
I know. I'm such a bummer.
No, that's fine. Like,
that's why I haven't been on, because I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to talk about? Like my general like feelings that everything is doomed and why even try?
Oh, so that's fine, because I think that these are things that can be talked out together as a group, and I think it's way like and like it doesn't have to be on the radio. Obviously, we can talk about this just you and me or whatever. Yeah. Like
we're friends in real life.
We're
y'all.
supposed to be supporting one another and all these other kinds of things, but like at the same time, like, I don't know. Maybe this is something that I've sort of thought that this is almost kind of like a therapy session when we come in and talk on radio.
100%. It's why I really need to start. I'm a really, really good therapist. I'm like really good at my job, but I will not take any of my own advice. Like, I don't understand why. My actual therapist thinks it's because I hate myself. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But I really need to start journaling this stuff out because like it really does feel better.
It helps you.
And it's like one of those things that once it's out, it takes up less room in your mind. It's like less scary. It's less, it shrinks down to its proper size. Because when it's like you're struggling with something on your own, it's like you are the only person. It's like a narcissism in a way, because it's like you are the only person who's dealing with it.
And nobody knows.
Nobody knows, and nobody really does know. But that doesn't mean that other people can't empathize or like be helpful
or at least hear you and be there for you. And even if they don't like totally get it, they can be like kind to one another. I don't know. I'm not, I mean, you know this stuff. I mean, you're a social worker.
I know, but I know it's like one of those things, do as I say, not as I do. I'm like, oh Lord. I'm like, no, we're gonna, there's a meme out there and it's like, oh, my friends are in trouble. Like, oh, coping skills, like therapy sessions. We're doing this. Like, we're going to get you better. It's like, I'm in trouble. Drink.
Yeah. It's like, that's true.
I should maybe
like the dankest social worker memes.
I know, but something. Honestly, there's some like really dank social worker memes. My favorite is.
Are they danker than the drywall memes?
I don't I don't even know what drywall means. Maybe I should only look at memes.
You should get into the drywall meme pages because they're great.
It's like, do you know the one where it's like the I'm like gesturing like you all can see me, but it's the tank of water and it has a leak and they're like slapping the duct tape on there. Yeah. It was like systemic oppression and lack of funding for mental illness, and then it's like slap bus tokens, and I was like, that's literally my life. That's my day-to-day existence. I got 4 bus tokens in my bag right now. I'm about to make it rain bus tokens on some lucky individuals tomorrow so they can get to their doctor's appointments.
Love to see
because
that.
Medicaid transportation won't take them to the dentist.
Oh my gosh.
So
that is outrageous.
Everything is great is what I'm saying. But
oh my gosh.
It's like I almost like, I don't know, I almost hesitate to like want to talk about this stuff on the radio because again, there's like so many other things we could. I mean, there's like a war with Iran, so that's like really cool. There's so many other things we could be talking about.
My hottest take on the war in Iran right now is that General Soleimani looks like Sean Connery.
Can we save that? Because I have a rant like towards the end.
All right,
just
cool. Let's drastically change subject.
No.
Oh,
keep going. I just don't want to.
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying like it's like I almost feel guilty that we're talking about this instead of that because that feels so much more pressing. But it's like I feel like this is a huge barrier in like just leftist spaces, and then also like my own personal journey on like trying to be a good activist and like trying to make this sustainable and you know trying to actually do things to help.
Right. But yeah, I guess a point to that would be like you're not alone in experiencing it, and I think. I mean, call in or email us, contact@goodmorningcomrade.com. Tell us, you know, do you feel the same way? Are we completely full of it? You know, like, I'm really interested in how people feel. I would imagine that most people do sort of like have a lot of introspective, like, thoughts and like they think about how they're processing things and all the stuff that you just said. They often won't articulate it because talking about your feelings is not something that most people are comfortable doing.
Yeah, and it's also hard, like specifically with me, you know, I come from a very privileged background and I've seen that used on Twitter like to discredit people. Like I've seen it's like, oh, well, you don't actually understand the struggle because you grew up with money or you don't like this is not life or death for you.
You're not a Bush twin though.
Yeah.
You're not Hunter Biden.
No, I mean, I'm not, but I'm fine. Like I'm fine. Like I'm going to be fine one way or the other. Like, but
there's a difference.
There is a difference, but it's also, you know, it's very easy to trick yourself into thinking, okay, well, you know, I really don't, you know, I can't take a step back because like I've had a step back my whole life and like I'm trying to make up for lost time. Like,
what do you mean by step back?
So it's this idea. It's like sometimes it's like, okay, like I don't have it in me to like be present right now. I can't like fully participate in whatever I feel like I should be participating in. So it's like I haven't really been canvassing, and I'm signing up to do phone calls, but I'm like I just really don't see myself going out to canvass just because
engage in a way that you can do so.
Yeah, but it's like the level of guilt I've like, and not that anyone is putting on top of me, that I'm putting on top of myself is like really intense. And sometimes it feels like, okay, well, you know, you don't have time to feel like to rest. You don't have time. Like there is not space for you to rest. If you don't do it, like all these people, you're going to be letting people down. And it's like,
right. I feel that way a lot too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of and it's because we all recognize how much stuff there is to do. And it's like, oh my God, well, if we're not doing it, especially when we look and see like, okay, like, is Amy Klobuchar going to do it? Probably not. So like,
Amy Klobuchar ain't going to do anything.
But it's like, it's just, I don't know. I just like encourage everybody who's listening to like give themselves time to like sit and like recognize that it is like sometimes really terrible being an activist because you have to come face to face with like just some really awful truths about the world because you wouldn't be fighting for something if you didn't think it needed to change, right? And it's hard to like sit with pain, and it's like the world is pain often. Yeah,
well, yeah, and I think it's important to take from that, like take that pain and sort of like turn, like you have to make things so that you can laugh at things that are awful to prevent you from crying. There's such a thing as gallows humor for a reason. It's because we all know that we're screwed or whatever, and the only way you can cope with it or deal with it or whatever is to make a chuckle about it, right?
I wanna circle back to what you said, Aaron, earlier about not that long ago. You said people are like, oh, you don't understand this because, you grew up this way and you're not sharing my experience. So it's like, I've heard an argument before, and I remember this because I think we were dating at the, like, we were probably like 2 years in. And we went to something, I couldn't even tell you what it was about. And I'll say this because, like, I feel like, let's just be frank about it. Like, well, let me go back to okay. So we went to some meeting. It was some, like, racial justice thing or something. It was at that bookstore on Bayou.
Oh, I remember that. And
this, and I'm going to go out and say this because I feel like I can say this because I am black. And it was a thing, I can't remember what even the topic was. But it was, this black lady, she was like middle-aged black lady, got up and she was like, I don't have time to teach white people about racism or oppression or something. And people, like, applauded that. And I just remember thinking, why are you here? And I didn't say this, but, like, I'll just come out and say it, like, and I feel like I can say this where, like, white people can't, but I'll be like, why are you here? Because if you don't have time to teach people about stuff, you already have, like, an audience who's interested, then what are you hoping to get accomplished? Like, you have allies, like, in the room, so, and they're willing, and they're here listening with bated breath, like, just waiting to be activated. What do you want them to do? And if you're not ready for that, then I don't even understand. You should just go about your life and just not worry about it. And I guess the way that, why I bring this up, it ties into that, like, Contrapoints thing. So, or anything, it could tie in anything. So let's say we're at a DSA meeting or something, or anywhere. We'd just be on the street and somebody, like, again, like, misgenders somebody or doesn't use the correct language, and they do it, like, in completely good faith. Like, it's obvious they're not trying to mock that person. Like, if you go in on them, like, what is even the point? Because that person's, like, there to, like, hear your experience, there to honestly just receive marching orders. Like we talked about earlier, we said, like, I don't know, when we were talking about Buck Angel, like, transmedicalism, that's, like, the first time I ever heard that. Mm-hmm. But here I am, like, okay, cool, tell me all about it. Like, I'm going to listen to it, and, like, you're the one having the experience, so whatever you tell me is gospel. I'm, like, putty, like, ready to be, like, okay, help me understand so we can move forward. Not to be like, well, you just don't get it, so just get out of here. Well, okay, that's not going to help anybody. So let's, like, not do that, I guess. Let's just meet people with good faith.
Or it's even not, let's not do that, because it could be that for that woman, like, the idea of having to teach, the oppressor, like the quote unquote oppressors, about her oppression might be, too much. And that's a completely valid thing to think. However, it's this thing of, okay, if there's someone else in the community who is willing to take up that mantle and be that educator, because in an ideal world, like, all of us will go and learn about ways. So essentially, we've talked about this before. There's, like, it's all a spectrum. So in an ideal world, every single person will do the work that they need to do to figure out, like, in what ways they are the oppressor and, like, what ways they are the oppressed. But, like, we don't live in that world. So essentially we do need people to be that voice,
communicators.
Right? And there are a lot of, like, I would say Natalie Contrapoints is a really great voice. So, like, not
perfect, but obviously know who is.
That's the thing. So it's like, okay, if she is ready, willing, and able to do the teaching, and she does it in, like, a really accessible, really helpful way, it would be like, essentially, if that woman was then to say, okay, like the one you're referencing would say, like, okay, I don't have time for this. Like, this is
that would be a boring YouTube video.
Well, no, but, like, if then she was then to go to say, like, someone like Phoebe Robinson, for instance, who wrote the book "You Can't Touch My Hair," which is, like, a really entertaining book about race issues.
They can direct people to that.
Yeah. Like, all these people who are, doing the teaching and then picking apart the argument. I'm like, okay, well, your work is invalid because of this little thing, right? That's, like, essentially what it is. It is totally and 100% okay for you to not feel like you have it in you to be, like, the teacher to someone who hurts you. Like, that is, like, very, like, that. It's like, I don't want to have to explain feminism or, like, why I deserve, like, reproductive rights to every dude. Like, I don't want to have. I'm like, there's plenty. People have done it better. Yeah. I'm like, go read.
No, I mean, I guess I want to really drive home the point. Like, yeah, on the street where you're just trying to get a cup of coffee, of course not. But you're in a thing, like, that woman was at a thing that was especially for that. So what is this? What is this purpose? Why are we all here in a room in a circle talking about the thing that you're telling people you don't have time to explain to people about the thing?
So that meeting, I think, was just I remember it. I think that was a good example of like why you need to have like structured meetings when it comes to activism, because like essentially often it will just devolve into everyone like talking about ways in which they are upset about the status quo and never actually getting to the, okay, here's what like our action plan.
That's why North's DSA is great. We do that. We shut that down.
So, but there's space for both. It just, you have to be very clear about like, what is this meeting for? Is this meeting event session? Is this an education session? Is this like for me to come to and learn ways in which, you know, oppression affects you and how I have, I have contributed to that oppression? Mm-hmm. Great. Like definitely super worthy space. But I just remember that meeting was specifically about like, hey, we're going to fight racism. And it's like, okay, but we never actually got to like the action steps. Mm-hmm. And I think there is this like weird assumption that like once you understand, because I did so many like specifically anti-racism, but like they were like ostensibly like all ism trainings. And we would always get to like, we would always talk about privilege and like what that means. And then be like, okay, done. And I'm like, okay, but like, well, okay, like what am I supposed to do now? And they'd be like, well, you know about your privilege now. So just everything's gonna be fine. And I'm like, but it feels like I don't feel like it will be like, and I'm like, I just don't, I understand my privilege now, but I don't really know like how to fix that. And I guess that's why activist spaces have been like,
they're not accessible to most people because basically they become lectures.
Well, yeah, that, not even like, yes, those kind of spaces, but that's why like spaces like the DSA have been like a lot more hopeful to me, because I'm like, oh, thank you. Because, you know, I don't have, I'm too busy. I'm too tired to like be a planner, but I'm like, tell me what to do and I will go do it. Yeah. I'm like, do you want me to go to this thing? Like, I will go to it. Like, if you want me to bail someone out, like, I'll go do that. Like, I will be a happy little foot soldier. I'm like, please just don't ask me to plan it.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fair. That's like, actually, we need more people that are willing to do that, because we have sometimes like a lot of situations have too many planners. And so, like, all that ever happens is planning and not the action. Not that's necessarily a problem in... Well, I've seen it in various spaces that was the problem. And so much planning, no action ever takes place.
Or that, they don't... It's like... Because I know I've had situations in which I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to come to planning meetings. But, like, literally just tell me when to show up and when to come. And, like... But if you don't go to the meetings, you're, like, not welcome to do the actual thing. And I'm just like... but
that's bad organizing.
I'm like... I want to help, but I also I work 2 jobs and sometimes 3 jobs, and like I need to sleep sometimes.
You are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This show is called Good Morning Comrade. You can get more information at goodmorningcomrade.com. You can also email us at contact@goodmorningcomrade.com, and also you can leave a voice message at 504-459-9945. And have your voice be on Good Morning Comrade.
Do it.
I don't
know. I guess I just wanted to get all this out here today, because
it's great.
I just feel like I've been on such a journey with my activism, and I feel like because social media wasn't as intense when I was starting my journey, I had a lot more space to like be stupid and ask stupid questions, and have my friends have a lot more grace with me than I think a lot of people online. Like, I've asked some really dumb questions. I've had some like really bad takes. And I've had a lot of people in my life who care about me, and they know me in person, so they know I was in good faith, who like very gently, and sometimes not so gently, but like much appreciated, like set me straight. Right. And those experiences were invaluable. And I'm so worried that we're not giving people the space to like make mistakes and then learn from them, and to be a little defensive, and then like, you know, unpack why. Like I got super defensive about like the way economics tied into racism. Like that was like a really intense.
How so?
So I just remember thinking like, okay, well, like racism will disappear when economics are set. I just remember like very strongly believing that, and like believing that it was like, oh, well, like it's a correlation.
Yeah.
Like, the fact. So
that might be true.
Well, I mean, but so that's the thing. I mean, that is a whole nother conversation, but I don't know. That was like a really big sticking point for me for a really long time. And I got super defensive about it. And I had to like sit there and unpack and like realize I'm like, okay, because I'm thinking that people are like judging me and like making value judgments on my life, or that like the idea of having privilege has anything to do with me as an individual, as opposed to just like where I fit in society and like just society itself. And I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that time to be defensive. Like, I don't think I ever would have gotten out of the defensive.
It's important that it's almost important that you feel a certain way sometimes, even if it's not 100% like on point. Yeah. Because you actually can be sort of self-critical about those sorts of things too.
100%. But yeah, so what we're doing right now with like this,
you can ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Yeah.
Yeah, is like people get to that defensive state and then they just dig in and they never get the chance.
Lash out immediately.
Yeah, they don't have the chance to like sit and think and be like, oh man, dang, like I was wrong. Like making, you know, bad word. Like, which I just like thank you to the people in my life for allowing me to have that space to have some bad takes and get set straight and be a little defensive about it. And thank you for not stopping being my friends. And I just wish, like, I really just wish everybody had that space. Like,
one more thing, like, there's this sort of like implication that when these sorts of events, these pile-ons that you see happen, there's almost like this. It's coming from the perspective like I would never do something like that or something like that. Like it's coming from
all my
moral,
takes are correct.
All my takes are perfect, and I'm coming from a morally pure place and like that. Like, I'm sorry, everybody's got bad takes.
No, literally
every single person except me.
Essentially, we live in a culture that is steeped in racism, sexism, like genderism, ableism. What is it? Religionism? That's not the right word, but.
Yeah,
you know, there's a word for it. Essentially, like our like culture is supremely effed up, and we grow up in that. And so, like, whether
that's what it was. That's the theory.
It. Yeah, that's the theory. But like, essentially, like, even if you were the nicest person with the best intentions and had the wokest parents, like, that's what you grow up in, and you will internalize some of those like really like wrong, incorrect, and like problematic viewpoints, and it just will happen because you live in society. And
we do live
the
in
fact
society.
that like we are punishing people for having internalized bad messages without giving them the chance to like uninternalize them is like really it's so sad to me.
They penalize you for being honest.
Yeah or for like, you know, talking about like how it's, you know, that's the viewpoints that we grow up with, and you have to unlearn, like, white people have to unlearn their racism in this country. Like, we have to unlearn our classism. We have to unlearn our our misogyny and our like homophobia and our genderism. Like, we have to unlearn all that because it's steeped in our culture. And so, like, give people the space to unlearn it. Like, don't try, like, don't ruin someone's process. Like, again, if they're like if they're in bad faith, if they're truly hurtful, and like no one's saying that you can't tell someone why. Okay, like if you are misgendering someone, like
intentionally or whatever.
Well, like not even intentionally, like unintentionally.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't mean like you could just do whatever and like make a mistake and never get any pushback. And like even if your mistake was you know in good faith.
Yeah, but I guess it also becomes a question of like what would actually be the thing that changes behavior. Is haranguing somebody who's, you know, an erstwhile ally, would that be the way to get them to change their behavior and still, you know, be able to be a part of the struggle going forward? Or is saying, well, excuse me, my pronouns are, you know, she, her, or whatever, or they, them.
Yeah. It's just when you're about to participate in a pylon, or you're about to like criticize someone in a really public way, which Twitter is,
and
just think about like, okay, well, am I doing this in good faith? Am I doing this because I want my comrade, I want this person to grow and like be a better ally? Or is it because I want to demonstrate how much better I am at this?
Moral superiority. It's almost like a puritanical thing almost. You know what I'm saying? So and when you put it in those sorts of terms, it's almost like a Protestant like
it 100% is.
Yeah, very sort of like, and it becomes totalitarian in a certain sense too. Like
totally is.
The society that's watching it's like it reminds me of like Calvinism and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I just really really encourage everybody to go and watch that Contrapoints video. It's literally just called Canceled. It's really good. Touched on every single thing we talked about in here in a more eloquent way than we did, but I just am really fascinated by it, and I don't know, I'm glad we got this chance to chat it out.
Yeah, and so you can listen to Good Morning Comrade on WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3 in New Orleans. You can listen anywhere in the world at whivfm.org/listen. You can listen to our past episodes and get more information at goodmorningcomrade.com. Email us, contact@goodmorningcomrade.com, and now you can leave a message to us. 504-459-9945.
Awesome. Go ahead, and if you're listening to the radio show, we're going to sign off. But you can go to the podcast. I'm going to rant about Iran for like a couple minutes because there's a tweet that just went through. I have to talk about it. It's so spicy. But everybody say bye. Say thanks.
Love you. Bye.
Okay. So this tweet
Here
just came through.
we go.
Woo!
Spicy meatball.
Spicy.
That's ready to go. Mamma mia.
This is legit.
For those of you who didn't just listen to our last episode, please tell us what it is about.
About what?
So we are recording, and we went right from our last episode right into this episode. So theoretically,
I assume they're listening to the podcast and they're just continued listening.
You don't know that they heard the last episode?
Well, if they heard
It's
the
not
last,
gonna-
if
okay,
they
so
came
anyway.
here from the radio show, then they already know.
I'm just saying, what if they didn't come here from the radio show?
Then
You know
they've
what they say
listened to
about
the whole
assuming?
thing.
It makes that ass out of you and me.
All right. So, anywho,
Robert, you're
Outrageous.
canceled.
Robert's canceled.
So breaking hashtag full my boy Bibi Netanyahu in Israel.
Oh boy, spicy meatball.
Full Netanyahu statement to security cabinet meeting. The assassination of Soleimani isn't an Israel event, but an American event. We were not involved and should not be dragged into this.
Oh, no,
Quote unquote,
he's
new phone, who dis?
I'm sorry.
He's
did
distancing
we,
himself from the U.S.
Did we or did we not move our embassy for him?
Yeah, we moved it to
How
Jerusalem, which is, by the way, like an attack. Like that is.
If you're on
actually
our
a big
Twitter, like I already tweeted out, like the USA are the biggest ducks and suckers of all times. So we've given them so much military aid, and they're just like, again, new phone, who dis?
Yeah.
Like they like we don't even know you, like deuces.
And this still won't even do nothing because now it's gonna. You know what I see this as being is. You remember when Obama was viewed by like Netanyahu or whatever as not being sufficiently right wing?
Right.
This is like the photo negative of that.
Dude, this is wild.
It's like the opposite. And like Bibi Netanyahu is a absolute like
Monster.
atrocious human being who encourages like he's the leader of the Likud party, the prime minister of Israel, and like part of his foreign policy is to just evict and colonize different parts of Palestinian land, just kick people out and steal their territory, shoot bombs at Gaza and bulldoze houses and all these other things. And he's just himself.
Well, I mean, it's classic.
You don't want to mess with Iran either.
I don't want to like adjust people, like make people's lives into like some kind of a game. But so somebody at work, my work was talking about, well, why is Trump like talking all this? I said, look, you can talk about our military keeping us safe. I said the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean keep us safe. Yeah. If we were a European country, we would not be talking all this smoke at all. Not one iota of it. And this is proof to where it's like, yeah, the Netanyahu government is super right wing, super bloodthirsty, but it's like, I mean, it's a game. It's like a poker player. A good poker player is not going to sit at a poker table with you want people you can beat up. You want the Palestinians.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody who can bring it to you.
Well,
which is what the Iranians are. And I say this, Iran is not. I'll let you go before I go on my rant because I've got. But Iran is not some middle of the mall janky country. They're not.
No,
not at all. But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like Bibi Netanyahu is not a measured, calm actor here at all. I remember one time, I think it was at the UN. He had a like literal like a black bomb drawn that was a graph that was supposed to.
It was indicate, like it was a spy versus spy bomb, like
like a
Boris
black
and
bomb.
Natasha.
Russian squirrel. Yeah. But anyway, he had a bomb that was a graph, and it was like feeling about how this was before the Iran deal with Obama. It was like when it was happening,
right?
And it was basically. I remember I said this because I'll never forget it. He's like got this like filled in, like the black bomb filled in as a graph, and like they're like 30% of their way to getting nuclear bomb, which was what this graph was supposed to represent. And he said, you know, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. But this duck is a nuclear duck.
I want that. Yes, 100%. I remember that. Now, here's the thing.
It's like the scariest, stupid thing.
Now we can sit here and we're like, we record here. We're recording at WHIV, Low Power FM. Our
End all wars.
Yeah, our tagline is "End all wars." We could talk about like how discuss like war for oil, and we could talk about we're not going to fight in a rich man's war, but we're talking to we're preaching to the choir. We all know that. So what I want to get out is, if you listen to the show, this is the part where I really want you to share. I'm going to share it with my mom. My mom says she listens to this. My mom's not like a Trumpista or anything like that, but she knows a lot of centrist and right wing people. And this is the part like I want you to share with your family.
Hi, Robert's mom.
Yeah, this is this rant right here. So let's say you don't care about those people. You're not concerned about, you're like, we should just invade Iran and take over the Middle East, and we should just have all the cheap oil, which wouldn't happen anyway. But okay, that's you have no moral objection to war. Let's get down to brass taxes. Again, Iran is not some middle of the mall country. They have a substantial conventional military force, and they have a substantial, you can call them terrorist cells, militia fighters, whatever you want to call them, throughout the world, throughout the Middle East, and also Southeast Asia.
Also, Russia and China are on their side.
Yeah, that's Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Russia and China, and if you want to say our biggest ally, is Japan, which guess who sells pretty much where Japan gets their oil from?
China.
Iran. No,
oh,
Iran.
Yeah.
Iran has great political
goings
on with Japan.
Yeah. And it comes to something that I was talking about with Anwar Bashi in the last hour, is that he already views this as we're already in a war.
Yeah, we've been in a war since Stuxnet.
Since
we shut down their nuclear reactors with a computer virus.
And then the war in Yemen and the Houthis and all that's been funded by both the US and Iran.
But the point I want to get at more than anything else. So if you want to believe that nobody average people who aren't into geopolitical goings on had no idea who this guy was. And now the U.S. government is wagging the dog and saying that this guy was such a threat, now we had to kill him. Okay, so if you want to believe that, we can start at the Spanish-American War with the Maine. We can move right on to the Gulf of Tonkin. We can move right on to weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. All these things were
total BS.
Total BS, fabrications, lies that got us into war. But, okay, let's say you want to believe that. They're on the up and up. That's fine, 100%. Again, this is not a middle-of-the-mall country. In my opinion, the American empire is on the decline as far as our military power since Vietnam. They're more equipped than Vietnam, and they're also more equipped than Iraq. And even the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. If you don't believe this, there's been a lot of other outlets who've covered this a lot better than I'm going to. But you can Google, put down Call of Duty for a minute, kids. Google Millennium Challenge 2002. This was a war game that the U.S. military, U.S. Marine Corps, and Joint Marine Corps, Army, Navy all took part in. Red team, blue team against the fictional red team, which was definitely Iran. That they had a Marine Corps general. Last name was Ripper. Real true story. Please Google this. I'm not just making this up. Had him control the red team forces, and through conventional attacks, and then also asymmetrical warfare. Which, again, we can call them terrorist cells, whatever, which Iran definitely has. He decimated the United States military so bad.
Got their ass.
So bad that they had to reset the whole exercise after one day and then run it again, putting restrictions on the general. And just to make it unfair, it was so bad he quit. He quit the Marine Corps. He gave up his commission because he says this is a waste of my time.
Yeah.
I was like, I can retire. I don't need to do this. But he defeated us in one day.
Yeah.
With just the capabilities that they have.
This is really not helping my existential dread, so thank you.
So the U.S. losing a war, I guess,
and
would be the worst thing.
If you're...
It will if I die.
No, we're not. It's not going to be fought
That's
here.
the thing.
It's not going to be fought here.
It's not going to be fought here. That's the thing. And everybody's like, well, we can just invade Iran. That's not where it's going to take place. Where it's going to take place is military installations, civilian installations in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to go.
Back there again, eh?
Yeah. That's what's going to happen. And nobody's going to have our back. So
we're still in Vietnam.
Yeah, we've been in Vietnam since after Vietnam.
The 60s.
Because we're just dumb. Like, we're not dumb. We just don't care. Like, we're like, we need to blow money on defense contracts. That's what it is.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned...
Let me get this last little bit out, and you can go. So, let's say you don't even care about that. You're like, well, whatever. I still don't care. Okay, that's fine. So, what you need to do is... You need to, if you're of age, you need to go down. You need to again Google your local recruiting office, and you need to go down there, and you need to sign up immediately, because I don't want to. I'm tired of hearing about this on Twitter. How about I don't fuck Iran and fuck them, and we're gonna do that. And like, go down there and do it. Go down there and sign up and put your name on the dotted line and take the oath. And if you're too old and you don't care about the youth of this generation, that's fine. I tell you what you can do. There's plenty of civilian contractors involved in U.S. military.
Blackwater.
You don't got to do that. Go work for food services in the green zone. Go work for one of them companies that provide, like Aramark or something, that provide food services in the green zone. The people that do laundry, like again, the people who work in the chow halls. There's Burger Kings and Applebee's and all that, and those Iraqi bases and those Afghanistan bases. You can go work there. Go and free up a rifle. Take a job, like I said, in food service that would normally be a Marine or Navy or a sailor's job or something like that, and help them get out into the field. And you can sit behind the green zone. You don't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
You know what you need to do then? You need to shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Because if you're not ready to do that, if you're not ready to take the oath or really go out there and support the troops, I don't want to hear it. There was some guy that they were trying to bury on social media. Again, talking about cancel culture was our last episode. There was some Navy recruiter who put out, it was the best tweet ever. It was him standing there in his office with a coffee cup, pointing at his chair where you sit down and you sign in for the delayed entry program or whatever. And he said, I see a lot of y'all got a lot of feelings. He goes, why don't you turn Twitter fingers into trigger fingers? Come over here. And people are like, oh, fuck that guy. I'm like, no, he's keeping it real. He's keeping it real. He's like, y'all want to be out there and y'all want to be talking that noise and we're like, we should just go over here and do that and do this to people. Go put your life on the line.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about that. No, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Say the last thing. No. Go.
I just don't. It makes me so angry. Like, I'm so triggered. Like, I know two people who died in Afghanistan. One died in Afghanistan from an IED. The other one died from a sniper in Iraq.
Fucking horrible.
And I was lucky enough that I didn't have to go to that mess when I was in the Marine Corps. And them dudes died for nothing. They died for nothing. They died so oil prices could go up.
Yeah.
Well, theoretically go down. But you know what I'm saying. And I'm just like, I get really, really triggered on social media. All these people itching for war. And they don't want to put their money. If it was up to me today. We all these memes about the draft. Bring back the draft. If I could talk to Bernie Sanders about one thing I like, President Bernie Sanders, win your president. Here's a hot take. Bring back the draft.
And allow women in it because #feminism.
Absolutely. Allow women. No restriction.
Women.
The only
AR-15s.
The only restriction I have about the draft is there's no exclusion. None. There's no deferment. There's no nothing. There's no more voluntary.
Honestly,
no more. We get Medicare for all.
Yeah,
we get, because that's the thing you gotta understand, that Medicare. If we do, let's say we elect Bernie Sanders, who's in the lead now in Iowa and New Hampshire. We elect Bernie Sanders as president. So no more worrying about TRICARE. Yeah. No more worried about the GI Bill. Recruitment is going to go down exponentially. We need the draft back. No. We need the draft, and so that way, with no exclusions, I don't care who you are, you go right into the lottery. So that way, these people talking all this smoke, and we're going to up the age. Again, this would be my dream. We're upping the age. I think 26 is the limit for the draft. If the draft is ever, I think that's what I read.
How old am I? Oh, thank God.
We're upping it. If I'm President Johnson, we're upping it to 50.
Buddy, I'm not voting for you.
Because you know why? Because I was an administrator in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I did payroll. You can do that. You can do that in the Marine Corps at 50. No problem. Don't worry about it. There's even physical fitness standards that drop as the age. Like as you go up in age, the less physical. You can do that. Free up a rifle. Free up a rifle for a young person so we can get out there in the fight. Again, if you're not ready to do that, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about it.
See, I'm on the flip side of that right now. I'm like, anybody that you know in the military or anybody who's listening in the military right now, file for conscientious objector status.
Also, if you are in the delayed, serious talk, share this. If you are in the delayed entry program, you're 16, 17-year-old, 18, you're in high school right now, in the delayed entry program, and you haven't gone to MEPS yet. MEPS is where you do your final physical and the whole thing, and you raise your right hand and you say the oath. You are not in the United States military. Ghost your recruiter. Stop talking to him.
Tell him to eat shit.
Yeah, you ain't gotta tell him nothing. Just don't answer his calls. He's gonna show up at your house. Be like, nah, I'm done. I'm not doing this. Yeah. You're not in the military. I don't want to give people advice on, not anybody's listening to me, on going like AWOL, all that, but there are organizations set up to help people with that. You should definitely look into that.
But you can file for a conscientious objector status, like to the day before you get deployed even.
But 100%, if you have not raised your right hand and you're in delayed entry program, you do not have to deal with them at all. You're not in the military.
Oh yeah.
I'm done. That's my rant.
That's the rant.
He literally just threw his pen down.
Yeah.
Breaking
fuck that pen.
Radio property.
So you have been listening to anybody else want to say anything else before we sign off and say goodbye?
It's a longer conversation, but I do wish everybody on Twitter would back up off of the troops a smidge, because they do tend to be young black and brown men who need some stability and want to pay for college. And like, I do fully am on board with the conscientious objection, but I also, can we not like baby killers like we did in Vietnam?
Oh yeah, well, so that's a bad move.
Can we not do that?
So and one other thing too, because since you brought it up, and I think this is a really important sort of a class war aspect of this, wars, imperialism, and AOC had a really good tweet about this too. That is a part of class war,
100%.
right? The working class in the U.S., the working class in Iran, the working class in all these places, they're going to be killing each other. For whose benefit? The millionaires and the billionaires. They're the ones that cash in. Oil companies, defense contractors, all these motherfuckers, the worst people in the world, they make their money. They make all of their money off of the blood of working people.
Yeah, and
period.
Generally, we feed into that with, I do respect the troops, but like the same way I respect anybody else and any other working person, because I think, I don't want to undervalue or underestimate the fact that how little we think of so many blue collar jobs, and so going into the military is an immediate way to gain respect from your wider community. And it has, the structure of it.
And plus we talked about on the Veterans Day episode, I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, but you get TRICARE, you get GI Bill, and you get a salary, and you get the cost of living stipends, right?
Yep.
Like you have all these sorts of benefits that you get for going into it. Basically, we do have a draft in a certain sense that is not like 100%, but it's like people who are poor have a lot to gain from being a part of that. So they're kind of drafted by poverty. And
I just have seen a lot of Twitter hot takes from people who probably haven't had to make that choice for themselves, talking about how they wouldn't make that choice. And, I think I really wish a lot of people wouldn't, and I wish that there were other opportunities. But, I worked as a counselor on a military base, and when I tell you that the military was the best option for many, many, many people I talked to, then I was correct. And even if you can't even give them that, if you're like a Mr. Motherfucking like, Russian Revolution or whatever, like part of the reason that the fucking Bolsheviks were able to win is because they won the military over. Right. That's the whole thing. You can't like
part of the reason that they were even able to take it over is because the officers fucking like shot their commanders.
Presidential candidate, including Donald Trump, because I mean, I don't know how fair that is to compare because he's taking big money. Bernie obviously never took super PAC money or corporate money.
You know who gives to Bernie, by the way?
Yeah, I was going to say the military, the number one presidential candidate, including Trump, that the military members, the enlisted class, are giving to is Donald Trump. Like, so I mean.
No,
God,
Bernie.
no. I'm thinking about Bernie Sanders. Sorry, is Bernie Sanders. So they know what's up. I mean, so let's put them in a situation to where they don't have to make a choice between healthcare, college, and potentially dying or being maimed.
Yeah.
So let's do that for them. And if you want to support the troops.
I love this angry post game, but also another element of it too is that like Bernie is the only person that's running for president that initially came out saying like fuck all this. This is bullshit. And he actually, and like I don't want to like say like wow Congress is fucking great or whatever. It's better than like Bernie's coming in saying that like Congress should be the one that declares war, and like Congress has the popularity of cockroaches or whatever the fuck. But it's still better to have 535 people come to a decision than one motherfucker.
Well, that's like Pete Buttigieg is talking about, like, we deserve answers. Well, no, the answer is no motherfucking war. That's the answer.
What answers? Answers for what,
like,
dude? Congress
should be able to fuck all that. And I even tweeted at his campaign and got like a zillion little hearts, which... But I said, oh, so what Pete's saying is...
We did it for the faves and the retweets, baby.
I was like, so, yeah. And I was like, so what Pete's saying is we should all talk it out. The elite should talk it out in a wine cave first before they send brown people to go murder brown people for oil. Fuck that.
No, fuck it. So anyway, you have been listening to Good Morning Comrade. This is a little bit of a bonus extra thing that we haven't kind of done it like this before. I think maybe that could be something that we do to give a little bit extra content. But you can listen to us every Tuesday on WHIV-FM. We also do a lot of Thursday releases. Actually, if you go back and listen to the last episode, we had a very special guest, brother of the show, Dean. We talked about impeachment and Brexit, which was kind of fun. We've also done great interviews. We've had Ben Burgess. We've had Eric Blanc way back in the archives. He talked about his teacher strike book. We're going to have him coming back on. We also have a couple of upcoming interviews with some, guess what? I've been talking to a Chicago teacher, and maybe she's interested in coming on the show too. So that one's in the works.
Dude who's got all the spicy takes.
Which spicy takes,
Asian
dude?
Guy.
Asian guy?
Yeah.
Oh, Kenzo?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually out to him. He's already kind of agreed we were going to do like a home and home scene.
Nice. I love his TikTok.
He's great.
the only TikTok I watch.
I got a buddy that's TikTok's really good. And you should do mine. And plus, you should look at my TikTok because it's all pictures, videos of Sam. Oh, here's something. I got a new cat. Yeah, it's a very cute little cat. Her name is Phoebe.
Right, finally content that I like.
But yeah, you want me to show you a picture of the cat?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to show you a picture of the cat.
Listeners. Should we
Listeners.
throw it up onto the Instagram?
Remember, we're on radio, not video.
Okay, so
I know
but it's like
so
this is for the reacts. This is for the reacts. Okay, this is for the reacts. Here is. Let me find her.
You better be describing this cat.
There is Phoebe. Can you please describe the cat?
Oh my god. Okay, so she's perfect.
How perfect is she?
She's the most perfect. She's fluffy, and she's small. And she's very small, and she looks like she's got a great personality. And she is black and brown.
Like an orangey brown.
I mean,
tortoise.
It depends on the lighting of your
tortoise
phone.
cat, yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely one of those torties.
Tortie.
We have a tortie too, and our tortie is like basically feral.
Yeah, she's kind of she's like 12 weeks old. She's still figuring stuff out, but like she hides all the time.
She's still learning. She's on her journey.
And plus, Sam slaps her around.
Oh no, Sam is not a person. Sam is his other cat. Yeah. Before you call.
So anyway, you can listen to Good Morning Comrade and hear all of our cat commentary on WHIV FM New Orleans.
Call in if you would like a show of only cat commentary.
Yeah, we can do a cat video, maybe a cat live stream.
I would be pro. We can talk about our cats and other cats
and dogs,
maybe your cats.
All kinds
if you
of
call
animals. You can also email us about cats at contact@goodmorningcomrade.com. You can also give it, so you can actually go to iTunes, give us 5 stars. Actually, I wanted to do really quick before we bounce. We've gotten a lot of reviews.
And
I want to. We're averaging 5 stars, folks. We are in the top tier. I don't know how we're not on the new and noteworthy. You hear me?
Because we're not new, but we still are noteworthy.
We were. It's just that's how iTunes works.
So here is one. This is from Black W. Julie. That she says, great podcast.
Thanks.
So this is from Huggins going OM. That sounds like a name that Huggins going.
That might be a little nepotism.
Yeah,
that might be.
Interesting and informative. As a true moderate, I found this podcast accessible, informative, and an interesting state on both current and historical events.
He's not a moderate. He says he's a moderate. He's not a moderate. I just need that to be known. Yeah. Listen to our episode where we interviewed him. Not that I'm saying it's not, it's very anonymous.
Mike Huggins, one of the earlier ones.
Mike Huggins, the writer of Going Home.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. So here's from DJ Nola Bounce. Pretty good new lefty podcast. If you're looking for a leftist podcast that feels like you're hanging with your friends, this is a great one.
And we'll be your friends.
And
we are your friends already.
Yeah, this is from @Solitos on Twitter, a good buddy of mine. He says, good and informative leftist pod. You should check it out. So thanks to all the 5-star reviewers out there. You can be part of that 5-star review crew. Just go to iTunes. No, I'm never going to stop. Go to iTunes or Stitcher or whatever you listen to it on and say, hey, good morning, comrade. Y'all are awesome. Give us 5 stars and tell us how cool we are. So love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, Patreon.
Do it.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.